A minute here while I get everything set up. Okay, so today is all about feet or foots. So I had to find a foot related meme. Incidentally, when you Google foot memes on the internet, a lot of really terrible things show up. This was the best foot meme I could come up with. So today we're going to focus on that bottom part of your pot, and you have a specialized tool in your Ziploc baggie that I've given you, and I've only given to Ceramics Bee Kids because I can trust you. And that tool is this tool right here. This is a ribbon tool. So I gave out an actual real clay tool because you could have made this tool, but I thought it would be nice to actually give you something that you could that could make your life a little easier. So I'll be talking about how you're going to use this ribbon tool in a little bit in my demo. So just know that this is something you should find in your Ziploc baggie, not now, but when you're ready, look for this tool. Okay, these are your steps. This is what I would like you to write down in your notebook, please. So first step, and probably arguably the most important step for today, check and see which stage your clay is in. I could tell yesterday when I was grading some of your plate projects that the clay was still maybe a little too soft to be doing the things we were going to be doing, and that's okay. But today, it's really important that your clay is leather hard before you can move on to the next step of adding your foot. Because we're going to be taking the clay out of the mold today. And the mold, remember, is the paper plate. So without that paper plate supporting it, if your clay is in the plastic stage, like sticky, your plate won't hold its shape. And you're going to flop it out of the mold and it's going to go and it's going to be totally flat. So obviously that's something we don't want. We want to keep that three-dimensional edge that we have there. So it's really key that you check and make sure your clay is in the leather hard stage. If it is sticky, if you try and pick it up out of your plate and you see your plate doing one of these where it's wobbling around like that and changing its shape, get it back inside that mold. Let it sit uncovered for like 20 minutes, set a timer so you don't forget about it. And then come back to it and check it again and make sure it's leather hard, because I can't emphasize this enough. If you take your plate out of the mold and it's too soft, you won't have a plate anymore. You'll have a pancake. So really important that it's leather hard. And if you have a hair dryer, plug in that hair dryer and dry it for like a minute. That will also really help. But I can't assume everybody has a hair dryer. So you could also just let it sit uncovered for 20 minutes. That should help too. Okay, so when you are sure that your plate is leather hard, you're going to do that flip move where you're holding your hand under the plate and then put your towel. Remember, I told you to find an old towel that you could have at your workspace. So put that towel on top of it and do the quick flip to transport it onto the towel. So it's upside down on the towel. Then set that aside for a second. You're going to get some new clay from your bag and you're going to roll a coil. And you're going to get about a golf ball sized amount of clay, and you're going to roll a fat coil just with your hands. And then you're going to roll that coil to be flat, and we want it pretty thin. So about 1/8 of an inch thin. This should be thinner than the clay of the actual plate that you made. So about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it should be consistent, okay? Then you're going to use that ribbon tool that I mentioned to you, and you're going to use the round side of the ribbon tool. There are two sides to the tool. One is more kind of triangular shaped, and one is more round and teardrop shaped. So it's the round side you're going to use. And you're going to use that tool to carve a perfect ribbon of clay from that little coily slab that you rolled out in front of yourself. And I'm going to demonstrate that. So I'm not going to go into depth about how to cut a slab or how to cut a ribbon. I'll be showing you in the demo. Just know that you're cutting a ribbon of clay, and that ribbon is going to become your foot. So you're going to bring your plate back over, and you're going to slip and score that ribbon of clay around the foot of your plate, and then smooth it so that everything looks really smooth. I forgot to mention, before you put your the foot on the bottom of your plate, you should also smooth the bottom of your plate, because probably there's going to be some wrinkles there. So we want to get those wrinkles out of there. Sorry, forgot to mention that. So then once that coil is on the bottom, you are going to get your initials and hour number on the bottom, or you can sign the bottom of your pot too with your signature. Also, if you want, you can add some designs to the bottom of your plate. That's totally fine too. The concern I would have is if you have to stamp on the bottom of your plate, you might end up putting too much weight on the bottom of your plate, and it could end up flattening your plate. So we do have to be cautious about how much pressure we can put on the bottom of the plate, because we don't want to flatten it too much. So once you have got that foot on the bottom, you've got your initials and hour number on the bottom, snap a picture of the bottom so that I can see you did your foot, submit it, and then your plate needs to go back, right side up on your tray, slide it into your plastic bag, but leave that plastic bag open so it can really get to the dry leather hard stage for tomorrow. So everything can firm up. So tomorrow, then we can clean up your design when things are more firm. We can brush away those little boogers and clean everything up. So those are your steps for today. If you didn't finish writing this yet, please snap a picture so that you can finish writing later. I'm going to move on in 3, 2, 1. Don't think, no, there's not another slide. Great. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate those steps for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double check and make sure my plate truly is leather hard. So when I touch the plate, it doesn't feel sticky. So that's good thing number 1. If I try to pick up my plate using my plastic bag, it stays really straight and strong. That's good sign number 2. So I feel like I'm probably in a good position now to flip it over. So I'm going to take my towel, I'm going to put it on top of my plate, I'm going to slide my hand underneath, and then I'm going to do a quick flip so that it just goes immediately onto my towel. Peel off my plastic bag. Beautiful. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but this is what I meant by wrinkles. So the plastic that was the barrier between my clay and the plate, it just wrinkled a little bit, and those wrinkles imprinted themselves in the clay. They're subtle, but they're there, and we don't want them there. Also, we have this really sharp edge on our lips, so we want to get rid of that too. So I'm just going to take a moment to just do some smoothing. The wrinkles for me seem to be mainly on the edge, so I'm just going to concentrate scrubbing back and forth to get rid of those wrinkles. If you have wrinkles in the center, then absolutely you need to smooth the center too. So by scrubbing back and forth like this, really, what's really happening is I'm creating slip. I'm picking up little clay platelets and redistributing them inside those little nooks and crannies that I don't want. So, and my sponge is just barely damp right now. You don't want to really oversaturate the clay, because the more water that goes onto the clay, the more plastic it's going to become. So we just don't want it to become that plastic. Okay, so now I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to get my new clay so that I can make my foot. So just a rather small amount of clay, so small that you don't even need to wedge it. I'm going to roll a fat coil. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I'm just going to pre-flatten it a little bit, and then I'm going to roll it to thin it out. So some of you have rolling pins, some of you don't, but you could kind of use anything for a rolling pin. I'm just going to use this marker to roll this out thin. And as you're rolling, every now and again, you need to add some, allow some air to get under that thing that you're rolling. Otherwise, it'll kind of reach the end of its ability to stretch the clay. So just stretch it and then pick it up and stretch it again. With such a long, thin thing, I can't really do that throwing technique. So you really do have to kind of roll this. So I'm trying to keep it real consistent, trying to keep my pressure consistent. I'm kind of running out of room on my tray. There we go. So I'm trying to thin it out thinner than my slab was for my actual plate. Because if you look at one of your plates at home, like a dinner plate, that you might have, you'll notice that there is a foot on the bottom of that plate, but it's very slight. It's very subtle. So a foot ring really, it shouldn't be enormous, right? It shouldn't be super dimensional. Okay, so I'm gonna just chop off the ends where I didn't make it very consistent. Okay, so that seems pretty consistent. So now here's the trick with making a ribbon. I'm gonna take the round end of this tool and I'm gonna hold it vertically, right? And I'm going to carve through this slab that I've just made. And it's important to keep the tool vertical as you're doing the carving. If you let the tool kind of wander to one side or the other, front or back, you won't cut a uniform ribbon. So, oh, I ripped at the little end of it. Oops. Oh, well. So now I'm going to just use this little piece that I cut. And one of the reasons that I wanted you to do this is the top part will be round, the bottom part will be flat. So that flat part is what you're going to be joining to the base of your plate. Now I hope this is long enough. If not, I'm going to keep the rest of this handy because I might need to cut a second piece from that slab that I made. So I'm going to bring my plate back over and I'm going to score and slip around this edge right here. So the plate that we used should have left a slight little indent that's also hexagon shaped at that point where your pot transitions from being flat on the bottom to being more dimensional on the sides. That's where your foot should go. And you can use that ribbon that you cut, and you can just make the ribbon go all the way around and form a small hexagon shaped foot. Or you can make, you can cut that ribbon up and do it in pieces. Like I could have a little piece of coil here, a little piece of coil here, a little one in the corner. You can make, you can make the foot be just a flat piece here, a flat piece here, a flat piece here, a flat piece here. I don't know that my coil is long enough to wrap around the entire thing. So I'm going to do what is called a broken foot. And I'm going to score and slip just the center of each side of my hexagon. And then let's see, it's going to be really hard for me to score that tiny coil that I made. So I'm just going to score and slip the actual plate. And I'm going to skip the step of scoring and slipping the coil because I don't want to destroy my coil. But it's so thin and tiny that I think it's going to be okay. It's going to stick to these areas that I made here. Okay, so I have my coil. I'm going to cut it up into pieces. So here's one piece, and I'm going to place it in the center of one side of my hexagon. And I'm just going to gently press it down till it makes contact with the scored and slipped areas. Then I'm going to do that again. I'm going to cut a piece that's the same size, and I'm going to put it here. So you just continue in this manner, adding this really subtle little foot. What probably would have been a good idea is if I had cut all 6 of these and measured them against each other beforehand. So I know that they're all going to be uniform in size. But you could also use a ruler to do it too. So these little pieces are going to give my plate its foot. It's going to elevate my plate. It's going to provide a shock absorber for my plate. Oh my gosh, that worked out just perfectly. That was the last piece of my coil. Okay, so this is called a broken foot, and this is something you can do. You can do it all the way around. You can just do the corners, whatever you want to do for your foot, as long as you've got something there. And then, because I was kind of aggressive with my scoring and slipping, I need to clean that up now. So I'm just going to use my sponge, and I'm going to smooth around each little foot. You have a paintbrush that I've given you in your Ziploc baggie. You could also use that paintbrush. Just get it a little bit wet and then use that to smooth around your the little ribbons that you've added to the bottom too. That's another good way to do some fine tuning. Ooh, I really like how this looks. Nice. Okay. All right. So that could use a little bit more cleanup, but for the purposes of this demo, I think you get what I'm doing. So then as long as I'm looking at the bottom of my plate, I'm going to sign it. And I'm just using a pencil because a pencil is more comfortable to hang on to. And this is hour 1, so I'm going to draw a 1 on the bottom. So I wrote my name. You can do your initials, whatever you want. Just make sure it has some reference to who you are and then your hour number, please. So I did rough up some little spurs when I did that drawing on my, when I wrote my signature. I'm going to ignore that for now. Tomorrow, when this is more dry, I will brush those little boogers away. Okay, so now final step for today. Let's see. I don't need this extra clay that I've rolled here. So this clay that you've rolled out is probably not going to be consistent enough or workable enough to put back with your good clay. So at this point, you can maybe start a separate bag, just any old grocery bag, for your dry clay that you're going to end up recycling. So this would probably go into that dry bucket. Okay, so I've got my board, I've got my plate, I've got my towel. I'm gonna do the same flippy move that I did before. I'm gonna slide my hand under, flip. That way I'm less likely to distort my plate. And let me hold it up so you can see. So now my plate has some lift to it, right? It's standing up off the table. So then, oh, I forgot to say this. While it's still upside down, snap a picture so I can see your progress for today. And then flip it over so it's right side up. We want it to dry right side up. And then just carefully slide it in the bag and leave that bag open for tomorrow. So it can really firm up. Those feet can get strong. The surface can get more dry so we can do the final cleanup tomorrow because it is due tomorrow. Okay. So that's the process for today. I'm going to stop recording.